Hello, Eastside families. I'm coming to you from a different room of the house today. I'm visiting with you from my kitchen. I want to take reading in a different direction, maybe a fun direction. Today, we're going to look at maybe some point of view that is second person. Second person is giving you directions or commands. And in the kitchen, when we're given directions, we're usually reading a recipe. So I've really been encouraged by all the wonderful Eastside families out there that have been posting activities that them and their children are doing, different crafts and everything. So it helps me a little bit with the being uncomfortable in front of the camera kind of thing. So I'm going to try real hard to do this and hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I do love to bake, so it's something I like to do. And reading, math, science, it's all right here in one room of the house, the kitchen. Science, the chemistry of products of foods that join together and the reactions that come from that. Math, measurement. There's a lot of math in this. And reading from beginning to end and following the directions in that order, in that sequence, and that's so important. So before you got here, I did a couple of things. First, I washed my hands. I put up my hair. Well, I guess I put up my hair first. Put up my hair because long hair isn't always a plus in the kitchen. I've donned my apron for a couple of reasons. It helps protect my clothes, but it also helps protect your food product from maybe fuzz or something that might be on your shirt. My hands are washed. I've looked at my recipe to make sure I have everything, and that's where I'm at, and I've brought you in. I've done some prep work ahead of time so that you're not here for an hour trying to put together one cake. I may do this video series in two parts, the first part being the cake, the second part being the icing. Today we're going to be creating a carrot cake, and then eventually we'll be adding a cream cheese icing. This recipe comes from Betty Crocker. I do have it in my book, but it's available on bettycrocker.com. I looked it up to make sure we're all legal and all that. And it's a wonder. Betty Crocker's been so helpful for me over the years, and so I definitely promote the products there. Speaking of products, I'm not going to promote any brand today, so if you do see a label, that doesn't mean I'm promoting that. It just means that's what's in the house and that kind of thing. So our carrot cake today has several steps and lots of ingredients and a lot of fun. So let's start with the first thing you do whenever you're ready to tackle a recipe. You read it. You read from beginning all the way to the end, and then you start. First comes the ingredient list for this carrot cake. 1.5 cups of sugar, 1 cup vegetable oil, 3 eggs, 2 cups all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon vanilla, half teaspoon salt, quarter teaspoon ground nutmeg, 3 cups of shredded carrots, 1 cup coarsely chopped nuts. Heat oven to 350 degrees. Grease and flour rectangular pan, 13 by 9 by 2 inches. Mix sugar, oil, and eggs until blended. Beat 1 minute. Stir in remaining ingredients except the carrots and nuts. Beat 1 minute. Stir in the carrots and nuts. Pour into pan. Bake until wooden pick inserted in center comes out clean. 35 to 45 minutes. Frost with cream cheese frosting. So I did do a couple things beforehand. I did grease and flour my pan. I am using a glass dish today. I put my vegetable shortening in here, slathered it all over, sprinkled my flour in and shook it around so it's all covered thoroughly. I have preheated the oven to 350 degrees so it is ready as soon as we are. So let's get started. What was that first thing it told me to do after I heat the oven? That's right. Mix the sugar, oil, and eggs until blended. So the sugar called for 1.5 cups of sugar. Now what's neat about measuring cups and measuring is I can very easily do a 1 cup and a half cup, But what if my 1 cup is dirty and I only have the half cup? So then I can do very quick math and go, okay, so how many of these half cups make the whole cup? You're right, 2 of these. So if I need 1.5 cups of sugar, I will use 3 of these. Good job. So let's take a scoop. Sugar you can scoop, shake, level off. 1, help me. 2, nice level. And 1 more. Notice how I have folded back my bag. It does help scooping things out. It's less of a mess. Now, as I notice that all of my ingredients are on this side of my mixer. So as I finish them, I'm going to move them over to this side of the mixer. Then I know, okay, I have used that. I'm finished with it. The next thing, mix sugar, oil, and eggs. The oil is 1 cup of basic vegetable oil. I have already measured that out into this nice little dish. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. Scrape it out a little bit. Move that to the other side. And my eggs. I've already cracked my eggs, so I'm going to place those into the mixing bowl as well. One thing you're going to note on my video cam is there's not a pause button. So I'm going to keep moving as much as I can, because I can't stop the movie, can't stop the video to check on something or move it. So, now, when you lower your machine, you want to make sure you keep your hands out of there. They don't belong in that bowl, and keep mixing. Once they've mixed a little bit together, you can increase your speed and get them mixed up really well. It said mix them until blended. Well, it's looking good. And then that's where they're talking about increasing their speed, and you beat for 1 minute. Beating is a faster motion of the mixer, and keep going. So stir in the remaining ingredients except the carrots, which I need to move those over here. What's great about a recipe is the ingredients are in a list on purpose. They're listed exactly the order you're supposed to put them in. So you don't want to start with something that's halfway down and then work up. It doesn't work. So right now we're getting what we call our wet ingredients all beat together, and then we're going to add in our dry ingredients. There are certain ingredients and products that have to be in that order, or else it just messes up the chemistry. Here we go. I'm going to slow that down a little bit. The next thing is flour, all-purpose flour. Now, it's just a preference of mine, but I do prefer unbleached flour. Now, the thing with flour is not measured the same as sugar. It's a dip. You dip it and put it into the measuring cup, and then you level it off. Okay, level it off. And then I can add that. This thing is a little bit tight on space, so sometimes I have to lift it up and add that. That's 1. This type of measuring cup is what's used for what we call dry ingredients, and flour is that. And once I get it piled up a little bit, then I scoot it over and take that. There we go. That's the flour. Moving that to the other side. 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Whenever I see a recipe that calls for a teaspoon of something, of course I have my measuring spoons, I think about from the movie Sleeping Beauty and the fairies that were raising Aurora or Rose, Briar Rose, depends which story you follow. And I remember the fairy going, oh, 1 tisp, 1 tisp. Well, I think she meant a teaspoon. TSP is an abbreviation, and that's something you'll see with a lot of recipes. There's a lot of abbreviations used. And so the cinnamon says 1.5 teaspoons. So I'll take this, and I like to run it right along the top like that. It kind of takes off that top mound. There's 1 teaspoon. And then I come back down here, and here's my half teaspoon. So now I need to fill that one as well and put that in there. I do like cinnamon, so if a little bit extra gets in there, it's okay. I don't mind that at all. And it won't hurt anything. It won't change any of the dynamics. 1 teaspoon or TSP, of baking soda. So here's our baking soda. Same thing, measure it off, put it in, baking soda. 1 teaspoon of vanilla, another one of my favorite ingredients. Smell that. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yum yum. Now, I will say I'm using imitation vanilla extract because it's affordable. So if I go a little extra with that too, it doesn't hurt anything. A half teaspoon of salt. Now sometimes I can be a little sloppy sometimes, so I will take my salt, standard iodized table salt, and I will put it over top of, between my mixer and you stands a sink, so it's catching some things. There's my salt, half teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now I'm getting really small, aren't I? Here's the half spoon, and then here's the 1/4. 2 of these 1/4s is equal to 1 of these halves. So this is for the nutmeg that I've already lost. Okay. Nutmeg. Put that in there. And now I want to just, it says stir, so that's a little bit lighter. So you just want to put that on a slow, lower number speed. And let it get mixed in. While we're waiting on that, here's my carrots. I needed 3 cups of shredded carrots, so this morning I peeled my carrots and then I grated them, and that's what we have here. Now, some people might get excited and think, oh, well, there's carrots in there. That's healthy, right? Well, a carrot is healthy, but I think you would have to actually look a little bit beyond the sugar in order to count it as healthy. Now what I'm doing is I'm scraping down the side of the bowl, and notice that I stopped the mixer from going before I did that. That's to make sure all those ingredients are getting down in there. Always go back. We talk about rereading a lot in reading class. When we're trying to answer questions, go back, reread, go back and reread. And you'll notice that I'm continually going back and rereading and going back and rereading, making sure I don't overmix, overbeat, making sure I haven't skipped an ingredient. Always go back and reread. Did I put in the sugar, the oil, the eggs, the flour, cinnamon, baking soda, vanilla, salt, nutmeg? I sure did. And then it says beat for a minute. So see, I need to put that up a little bit. There's just one more step after this. Well, 2. 1, putting the last of the ingredients in, and then we'll be ready to put it into the dish for baking. I can smell it already. Can't wait till it bakes. Sugar and cinnamon and all that goodness. Yum! So now I'm ready to add in, and I will say, add in the carrots and the nuts. The recipe calls for a basic walnut. I have walnuts. I didn't have quite a whole cup, so I am improvising a little bit. So it goes against the reading the directions, but I did have some raisins, and raisins are pretty good to add to a cake like this. I'm not the biggest raisin fan, but my family likes them, so we compromise sometimes. Turn that on, get that mixed in just a little bit, and now I'm ready to add the carrots. The carrots have a lot of water content to them, which is going to be great when it comes to keeping the cake moist as it bakes. good time to remind you that, yes, I did wash my hands before we started this adventure. Putting that in the sink. So here we go. Let's get those stirred in there. This is a scraper that I always use, pretty color, purple, and that helps you. It's rubber, and it helps you to keep things off of the side, and it's going to help us a whole lot as we put the batter into the dish. Here we go. Look at that gooiness. Yeah. Okay, take the paddle off. Here again, another use of the scraper. We don't lose all this stuff. It's a lot of carrot and a lot of goo. So we scrape off the what's called a paddle. For this mixer, it's called a paddle. I have a hand mixer as well, and that we always call them beaters. They're shaped a little bit differently than this one. It gives you a little bit of a hands-free opportunity. So I'm going to give it one more scrape around, make sure everything's up off the bottom, release the bowl. And here we go. Let's get it in the pan. Oh yeah. Now, if some of you are still sitting there going, is she really putting carrots in that cake? Don't worry, I have not ruined the cake. This isn't going to taste like you just cooked carrots in the cake. You're not really going to taste it like the cake, because this is considered like a type of a spice cake, similar to a lot of different spice cakes out there. This recipe, I also use the alternative, which is to put apples in instead of carrots, and it's equally good. But I wanted to do one that I could put icing on, and the apple cake we like to eat more plain. So you're not going to taste the carrots like, oh, it's carrot. They'll be overwhelmed by the spices. That cinnamon. That's what all I'm smelling right now is cinnamon. So it looks pretty. I don't think I can get you down there to see it exactly. Let's try. All right. And now we're ready to move it over to the oven. Okay. There we go. 350 degrees. We're going to slide it into the oven. We're going to check that recipe again to go. Now, what was that? How many minutes? Can you remember? I can't remember. That's why we reread. And it told me that I need to put it in here for approximately 35 to 45 minutes. So typically when it's 35 to 45 minutes, I will set my timer for the middle part of that, which would be 40. And then when that is done, then we will check it. There it goes. And we'll check it and make sure that it is cooked all the way through by poking it with a knife to make sure no batter sticks on it and that kind of thing. So this was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Got one last reading thing. Did I do everything it said? Reread, reread, reread. It's a skill that is so helpful and will guide you in great ways. So we'll check back with you later, and maybe that time we can make some icing, get some icing on there, give it a taste, and see how we did. Thanks for joining me today. Maybe you'd like to try to pick out a favorite recipe of yours and enjoy putting reading into action today. See you later.